You've heard of Waterloo, you've heard of Napoleon, but have you ever wondered who stood on the other side of history? The general who didn't just defeat an emperor, but quietly replaced him in power, in influence, and in reach? This is the story of Arthur Wellesley, better known as the Duke of Wellington. Not a man of charisma, not a man of fortune by birth, but a man of cold calculation, quiet ambition, and devastating results. By the end of his life, Wellesley's fortune would be worth the modern equivalent of $125 billion. He didn't build factories. He didn't gamble on speculation. He commanded empires from behind velvet curtains, winning wars not just on battlefields, but in courts, banks, and parliaments. He didn't just fight history. He outlived it. Arthur Wellesley was born in 1769, the same year as Napoleon Bonaparte. They would become mirrors, one born to command attention, the other to command systems. Arthur's family was noble, but broke. He was a third son, unimportant, disliked by his mother. Not clever, not charming, not promising. But he was watching, always. His schoolmates laughed at his silence. His instructors called him awkward. He responded by immersing himself in the only two things he could control: discipline and detail. When he entered the military, it wasn't out of desire, it was necessity. But what he lacked in passion, he made up for in calculation. His first true ascent came in India. While other British officers used colonial service to grow fat and arrogant, Wellesley learned the machinery of empire. In the dusty chaos of the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Wellesley didn't seek glory. He studied terrain. He timed his attacks with methodical precision. He used food, climate, and positioning as weapons. Victory after victory came, not through emotion, but through logistics. By 1805, Arthur Wellesley had done the unthinkable. He subdued his Indian resistance, gained immense spoils of war, and returned to England a landed aristocrat with titles, pensions, and cash. He had already won a kind of war that no French army could undo. But Europe hadn't seen anything yet. In 1808, Britain was desperate. Napoleon had conquered almost everything. Prussia lay broken, Austria humbled, Spain occupied. England? Cornered. They sent Wellesley to Portugal with a single job: disrupt the French Empire from within. And he did. For the next 6 years in the Peninsular War, Wellesley transformed irregular Spanish fighters and weary British troops into a disciplined force. He mastered delay. He never rushed. He used hills, rivers, and timing like the strings of a violin. French generals charged. Wellesley absorbed, repositioned, countered. They advanced. He bled them. And when Napoleon's men finally withdrew from Spain, it wasn't with banners fallen, it was with morale shattered. Wellesley returned home to accolades. Parliament gave him £400,000, over $50 million today, to purchase a grand estate. He was named the Duke of Wellington. But more than that, he became Britain's shield. Napoleon escaped exile. Within months, he had raised an army and was marching toward domination. Europe panicked, and once again, the continent turned to the cold-eyed general they trusted above all. June 18th. Waterloo. Wellington's army was a patchwork: British regulars, Dutch conscripts, Belgian militia. Napoleon's forces were elite, experienced, battle-hardened. The odds? Grim. For nearly 10 hours, cannon fire and cavalry assaults crashed against Wellington's lines, and he held. He moved troops like chess pieces, anticipating every angle, every weakness. Until finally, as dusk fell, the Prussians arrived. The French flank collapsed. Napoleon's empire died on that muddy Belgian ridge. But Wellington's true conquest had just begun. After Waterloo, Wellesley became more than a general. He became the power behind Europe's restoration. He attended the Congress of Vienna, redrawing borders, brokering alliances, dictating the post-Napoleonic world. He wasn't loud, he wasn't theatrical, but he was everywhere. Ambassadors deferred to him. Kings sought his blessing. armies restructured under his logic. He returned to Britain and entered politics, not as a servant of the system, but as its silent master. He became prime minister, twice. He controlled military appointments. He advised monarchs behind closed doors. Wellington built his influence not on votes or speeches, but on reputation, silence, and the fear of being wrong in front of him. And the money, it flowed like a river. Royal pensions, parliamentary grants, foreign honors that came with land, titles, and passive income. He was made Duke of Ciudad Rodrigo in Spain, Prince of Waterloo in the Netherlands. He received 33,000 acres of land as personal gifts from the grateful British government. His fortune ballooned, not through business ventures, not through stock markets, but through patronage, land, and rent, a system of wealth older than capitalism itself. By modern estimates, his net worth would exceed $125 billion. But perhaps the most astonishing part? Wellington had no scandal. He wasn't known for grand affairs or political theater. He wore his old uniforms until they frayed. He lived with military precision, even as an aristocrat. And yet, behind that austerity was absolute control. He shaped the British Army into a professional force. He helped steer Britain through revolutions, upheavals, and the dawn of industrial modernity. When workers protested and riots threatened cities, it was Wellington's forces that stood as the quiet wall. He didn't need to rule as a tyrant, because he had already designed the cage. Wellington died in 1852. 5 million people lined the streets of London for his funeral. The nation wept, but he had left behind more than a military legacy. He had embedded himself into the very structure of British power. His family would remain prominent for generations. His estate, purchased by the government, became a monument to aristocratic continuity. His image, iron-jawed and stoic, became the very face of British dignity. He wasn't the man who changed the world loudly. He was the man who ensured it never changed too much at all. In the end, Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, was not merely a soldier. He was not merely a politician. He was a system, a man who understood that true power was not taken, but earned slowly, held quietly, and never flaunted. He didn't just defeat Napoleon. He survived him. He didn't chase revolution. He outlasted it. And in the shadows of empires, under the marble of parliaments, in the pages of treaties and war budgets, Wellington still waits. Cold, composed, watching, because that is how power endures. If this story pulled back the curtain for you, if you crave more than surface history, if you seek the systems, the money, the masters who shaped the modern world quietly and completely, then subscribe. We tell the stories they'd rather stay buried. We map the power that never needed a crown, one video at a time, one empire at a time. Welcome to the real history,